What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Culture FC, the weekly soccer show that's really not all that much about soccer. We cover lifestyle, fashion, music, politics, all the things that make soccer the beautiful game, but just none of the stuff happening really on the pitch. My name is Louie, and I am joined here with my two amazing co-hosts, Alan and Brendan. And this week, we dove into the International Champions Cup as well as preseason friendlies that go on in the United States. So every summer, you have these big European giants who come to the States and participate in not only friendlies, but also in something called the International Champions Cup, which is just an organized friendly tournament between some of the world's best teams. It allows fans of European soccer and just fans of soccer in general in the United States to get to see some of their favorite teams. And it's just a way to get to see clubs that you don't really have access to aside from a television. We talked about what we think its impact is on American soccer culture, what its impact is on the MLS, and how they could potentially better the ICC. If you enjoy this podcast, we would really appreciate a 5-star review on any of your favorite podcast apps, whether it be iTunes, Google Play, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. It helps us rank higher, it helps us reach more people, and it just means the absolute world to us if you could do that. On that note, you can find us on Spotify. As of last week, we are officially on Spotify. You can also find us on iTunes, Google Play, Google Podcasts. Honestly, you can find us pretty much anywhere, and you could even follow our YouTube channel, where we post the video version of this podcast as well as a top 10 show that we do every week. And soon we will be rolling out more content. So hit that subscribe button on YouTube. You can follow our Instagram at culturef.c. We post behind the scenes footage, pictures, stuff that you don't necessarily get to see or hear in the weekly show. So give us a follow there. I think that's enough for this week of me asking you to do stuff. Let's jump into this episode. You guys enjoy.
Alrighty, dudes. First piece of news for the week. Our Swedish king is back in action in the tabloids. Not really tabloids, but in the news. Claiming that he could play with the great LeBron James without a problem. Flipping from soccer, now he's reaching out his brand into basketball. And he said that the two move in similar fashion, quoted saying, they move like small ninjas.
I mean, I don't know. It seems very much on brand for Ibrahimovic to say things like that. I'd almost think that if he didn't say something about LeBron James, now that both of them are now, living in LA and playing in LA, then something would be wrong with Ibrahimovic if he weren't making outlandish claims like this again, Like if he made some mediocre comment or whatever, then you'd be like, all right, someone needs to check his head. Like he needs to, where's the crazy ass comments,
I feel like he leveled up though. Like, in terms of, being confident, he just leveled up and moved to basketball. He's soccer's here. But
to be completely honest and not disrespecting the sport of basketball, but he probably could. How tall is he? 6'4"? 6'5". Yeah. To me, basketball is if you're tall enough, you probably get decently far. He's already an athlete.
And, if you're tall
that's
enough.
No disrespect to people that play basketball, but that's just my view on it.
That's true. And, even saying, too, soccer players, dude, if you can jump, there are some dudes who can just jump mad high.
Yeah.
And, I remember my older brother used to watch, how to jump like a soccer player, VHS tapes. It was hilarious.
Was that a series of
Dude,
VHS
there were
tapes
definitely exercises that you can do, I guess, to improve your jumping.
I might have to watch some YouTube videos on how to jump like a soccer player.
How to jump high.
But no, I mean, I think it's kind of great. It makes sense to me. You have LeBron James, who's the best NBA player, and then you have, Ibrahimovic, who's the probably top 3 best MLS players. A lot of people thought he wasn't going to produce when he came, but
yeah, he pops up as he's been. I follow a lot of the MLS teams, and he just pops up every after every weekend. It's Ibrahimovic scores another goal. Yeah. It's all right, man.
Even last night, he didn't score, but he provided 2 assists.
He's been playing well.
He's a provider.
Yeah. But moving on, I think I'm going to roll into a topic that kind of is more closely related to the ICC topic that we're going to be covering today. In coordination with that, starting up here in the U.S., the ICC actually started a House of Soccer, which is kind of a little playground that brings together culture, music. They've had like 2 Chainz, Odell Beckham was there for the unveiling. I mean, a whole host of kind of notable superstars and from different sports worlds. And I kind of thought of it as the physical representation of what Culture FC is. That's how I likened it to. But yeah, kind of trying to bring the things that we bring into the podcast into a physical location. So I thought that was just kind of interesting.
That's pretty awesome that they're doing that. I mean, yeah, like you said, that does kind of really bring in all the things that we always kind of talk about, like bringing music, bringing culture, popular culture into the sport. So that's really awesome that they're doing that.
Yeah, I think like Maldini was there, Mon Shumpert, Tiana Taylor, Victor Cruz. So they were bringing people from all over, not just soccer, which is cool to see. And they were getting involved, playing games. You see Victor Cruz wearing like soccer jerseys that were like kind of customly fitted for the event. So it's just kind of nice to see.
And so I saw a video of Odell Beckham playing soccer was that there?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
sweet.
So they
that
were.
makes sense.
That's mad cool, dude. I'm looking at the event like on the 27th. 2 Chainz is performing, and then there's like FC Bayern Legends game, and then sunset match featuring local creators, influencers, and soccer lovers. Like that's mad cool.
And where is it?
It's in LA, I think.
Oh, nice.
Let me just
Okay.
Miami.
No, so there is one in LA.
Oh,
there
I was
might be
talking
one.
about the one in Miami.
There might be
The
one in
next
Miami. Yeah. So it looks like they're going to kind of all the destinations where the ICC is going to be playing.
Oh, it's today, July 27th.
Oh, nice.
In Miami.
Yeah, the Miami one. The LA one already opened.
Yeah.
I think that opened on the 20th or the 21st, something like that. So they're kind of spreading it out, which is even cooler. It's not just one location. It's kind of spread out throughout the U.S.
Yeah. No, that's actually really awesome because, I mean, if you think about it, like, where are some of the spots that most, like, celebrities and people kind of go to? You basically have L.A., Miami, New York.
Yeah.
And New York's always had a couple of random little, like, soccer events here and there and stuff. But it's really cool that they're, like, you know, in the summer, you have a lot of people kind of hanging around. Football hasn't started yet. Their training camp has been, like, not yet started or whatever. So it's really awesome to see, like, Odell Beckham getting involved and, like, Victor Cruz and stuff like that. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Plus, it's just awesome, right? Like, bring in the people that everyone in America already kind of knows. Like, Odell Beckham's probably one of the most recognizable NFL stars on the planet. And so bringing him, involving him with soccer within the U.S. is phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we'll put a hold on that topic just because I do want to follow that up when we start talking about the ICC itself. But kind of rounding off our last topic of news here, for something a little bit funny, Neil Patrick Harris, the actor who plays Barney in How I Met Your Mother, and also it does a million of other things.
Yeah. The Heineken commercial guy, too.
Oh, true. He's been in the Heineken commercial.
You know what? I thought for the longest time, too, that he was in Malcolm in the Middle.
It does look like that.
Yeah. I could see that mistake.
Basically, him and his son, one of his sons, sat in the stands at the MetLife Arena, draped completely in Manchester City, kits, everything. They're there to support Man City as they were playing in the ICC. And he posts on Instagram and then says, "Go Manchester United." And you know what? Everyone's been saying this online, like, wow, I can't believe he made this awful mistake. But I'd like to put it out there that I don't think he made a mistake. And thank you, Neil Patrick Harris, for saying go Manchester United.
Yeah. I don't want to, like, as a Manchester United fan, like, say that whatever, but it just goes to show that Manchester United's global reach is so big that even when you're at a Manchester City game, you have no idea who they are. Yeah. So regardless of what they've done recently, fuck them.
That is exactly what I was trying to say. Yeah, thank you. That was spot on. I have nothing more to add.
Just perfect celebrity moment.
Yeah, it's just like, whoa, we have tickets to this soccer game, kid.
Yeah,
let's go.
Let's go to the soccer game, wear all this, and say the wrong team name. But hey, you know, got both teams a little bit more publicity. Publicity.
So my question is, like, is that really a problem now, though? Like, the way I see it is, if soccer is getting to the point now in the U.S. where you have, like, I don't know Neil Patrick Harris, like, in his, like, sports traditions or affinities or whatever, but if you're now getting to a point where, you know, just like celebrities think it's really cool to take their kid and, like, go to a soccer game versus, like, he could have taken them to a baseball game, he could have taken him to millions of other things, but I think it's kind of cool. Basically, what I'm trying to ask, like, is there a problem in this? Like,
I think this requires us to get into the episode a little bit more, just because I think that there are a lot of things that I can say before getting into it. Yes, it is really cool to see the sport where it is right now, but there is a lot that kind of goes. There are different angles you could look at it from, and
Alright, so-
different lenses. So I kind of wanted to dive into the episode and kind of introduce it and maybe circle back. on
Sure.
that
Well, let's
question.
put a pause on that too, and we'll circle
Yeah.
back around. So basically, today we are going to be discussing the International Champions Cup. It's essentially a series of friendlies being played by some of Europe's biggest clubs, or actually the world's biggest clubs, inside of the United States. And it's been going on officially as the International Champions Cup for probably, I want to say, 4 years.
Yeah, something like that.
Because they used to you'd always have random clubs come to the U.S. because there are a lot of fans of these European teams in the United
Right.
States. You've always had clubs kind of coming and going to the U.S. during preseason. Like, for example, about 5 or 6 years ago, I actually went to a Manchester United game at Gillette Stadium.
Yep.
It was really cool. It was actually very, very full. I think there was probably like 50,000 fans. There was a lot of people there. And so a lot of other clubs did this periodically every summer. And then I guess someone in the United States got together and said, all right, let's create an actual competition and kind of brand it and start to really push it forward and call it the International Champions Cup. And so, like I said, it's entering I think it's 4th year. Don't quote me on that part. But basically, it's been really cool. Like Manchester United's in the United States.
We experienced it last summer, right? We went to the PSG Juventus game, which we're down in Miami as well. Cool environment. It was definitely an experience. You don't normally get to see these teams and the players play regularly, so it was definitely interesting. And it's cool. It's cool because the U.S. now in the summer kind of becomes this playground for foreign soccer teams. And just as a quick question for you guys, do you like having the ICC here in the U.S.? Before getting into too many details, I just wanted to kind of get feedback, and we can kind of build off of there just of your responses.
Do I like having it? I think.
Have you gone to a game?
No, I've never gone to a game.
So you've seen it mostly TV.
If that. Even.
Yeah. Okay.
Honestly,
yeah.
I haven't watched a game yet.
Yeah.
Only highlights, but.
But you've paid attention though.
No, I paid
you've
attention
seen
to
highlights,
it. Yeah.
and you
I've
have
seen
been paying
highlights,
attention.
and I know who's winning and stuff like
Right.
that. So I guess I'm definitely connected a little bit. But I feel as if sometimes I don't know. I feel like my teams aren't playing their absolute fantastic lineups,
Okay.
and they're not playing because I feel like it's just like you said, like a playground.
Cool.
It's like a preseason playground. Like
Yeah.
why? But I get it. Why would you want to play your best players in a preseason
Yeah.
tournament?
Well, I think that the World Cup has a lot to do with
True.
that.
That's also true.
I mean, Manchester United's first game in the it wasn't even part of the ICC, but their first friendly here in the U.S. It was like a bunch of U18 players and like 2 first-teamers who don't necessarily start every week in and week out. So I think the World Cup this year has a lot to do with that. But for example, when we were down in Miami last year for the Juve PSG game, majority of their starters did play. Either first half or second half. Maybe they didn't go all out, but majority of the stars were there. And so I think that the question of do I like it or not, it really has to kind of be divided between like, if I'm a fan of European soccer, I think it's cool. I've never, when I was younger, I didn't have a chance to actually go to Manchester to see Manchester United play, right? And so, I mean, maybe today I'm a little bit older, I could probably buy myself a ticket, go to Manchester and do that. But having Manchester United play, half an hour from my house was pretty awesome, regardless of who they played. You know what I mean? It was just really cool. There was We Got Soccer is a store right outside of Gillette. That literally is like a soccer specific store, and they had a bunch of players come in and do like a little bit of interview, and I went there and waited for it was the day before the game or whatever. So like it was awesome as a fan of European soccer. But then I think it's hard, right? Because it's that thing. It's like they're not actually going all out. So it's more of like a novelty kind of thing.
Yeah,
But what are your thoughts? Do you like
so
it? Do you
I'm
dislike
glad
it?
that you guys both brought up points. I was hoping to extract these exact words out of you guys. And I think B brought up a good point initially of kind of, it does seem sometimes like it is kind of laissez-faire from the European teams. They're kind of just coming here, warming up, getting their feet back, right? A lot, even if it were the World Cup, but even if they're playing a half, we could tell even when we were down in Miami, they weren't playing full speed. And if you're kind of accustomed to seeing them play full speed on TV, it was exciting. I'm not going to say it wasn't exciting, but you can tell it's not their full potential, right? But then you bring up another point of looking at it from 2 different lenses, from an American soccer lens, and then from a European soccer. As a European soccer fan, yes, I love just the opportunity when Liverpool comes down here and plays the game versus Roma. They practice, I think, somewhere around Harvard or somewhere where you always see people go there. They meet the players. It's experiences that they would never be able to experience because maybe they can't go to Liverpool if it's just not financially feasible, whatever it may be. So from that perspective, it's awesome. But when I look at it, and we always talk about growing the sport here in the U.S. in terms of kind of giving respect to American soccer, to me, it seems like it becomes a little disrespectful to use the U.S. as its quote-unquote playground and having the U.S. kind of and kind of playing these friendlies against teams that are in mid-season, in my mind.
And not to mention, like, you have all of the focus from, like, let's take the American soccer focus, right? You have so many people now loving the game in the United States, but all of a sudden you're completely washing over the fact that the MLS is in the middle of a season.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
completely. So for me, I'm like, yeah, as a European soccer fan, yeah, I want to see Manchester United playing and warming up. But then as just a fan of the sport here in the U.S. and wanting to see it grow, I'm like, well, this isn't necessarily, I don't think, benefiting anyone in the MLS.
It'd be beneficial if they played MLS teams.
well, they
play some friendlies before the ICC, like United just played San Jose.
Yeah.
Right? But then San Jose fields a team. It was like they didn't care. First of all, they didn't fill out the stadium. They didn't care. They played a second-rate team in the beginning. Second half, they brought out some of the bigger stars. United wasn't playing a really strong lineup. So it becomes that who really cares in playing these games, right? Everyone is trying to get match fitness. MLS teams should be match fit already because they're in the middle of their season. Mm-hmm. But again, it's one of those things like it's not perfect timing for MLS teams because they have big games coming up where they can't play these big guys in case something happens to them. So to me, it becomes a little bit a hindrance to the sport here.
Definitely. And so the part that's interesting is that, Wednesday there were several ICC games. Man City was playing, Liverpool played, Manchester United played, and last night you actually had two MLS games midweek. You had New York City playing Orlando, and then you had LA playing LAFC. You had the Galaxy playing LAFC. LA Galaxy and LAFC, that should be watched by a lot of people all the time. Like, it should be a focus of MLS, right?
Especially given their first match.
Match. It ended up being an LA Galaxy win after they came back last night. Not to really talk about scores. I know that's not our thing. But, LAFC came up winning 2-0 at half, and then the Galaxy equalized at the last couple minutes. So, in other words, I'm not saying that to tell you the score. I'm telling you this because of how exciting the game was. I bartend, so happily I had the game on the TV, so I was watching that as I was working, so I did get to pay attention, right? But I feel like, and to go back to the part about the earthquakes, right? So I on one of these MLS groups that I follow, that I'm in with like all these other MLS news topics or whatever, one of the San Jose Earthquake fans posted, they're saying that, like, wow, this Manchester United game is a lose-lose for us. Because I guess they are bottom of the MLS in rankings right now, San Jose Earthquakes. A lot of their fans want the head coach out because he's not playing the players that they want to be playing. Yep. Clearly, he's not doing too well if they're in last.
Wow, yeah.
And so what the guy said was, this is a lose-lose for us. A, we're not playing in our own stadium. We're not playing at Avaya, which is a soccer-specific stadium that they built in San Jose.
Yep.
Instead, they were playing at the Levi Stadium, which is the San Francisco 49ers stadium, and that stadium was empty.
It was a ghost town.
It was an absolute ghost town.
Yeah.
We commented on it. We were texting each other during it, and we were like, wow, this is actually absurd that there's literally only, like, however many people there were, because they could have fit that many people at Avaya, you know what I mean? Which would have given San Jose Earthquakes a little bit better, because at least they're actually home, and they feel like they're in their own environment.
Yeah.
And then they're also like, well, if we tie or win, then it gives the coach a reason to use it as a backdrop of, like, oh, like, yes, we're shitty in the MLS, but we tied Manchester United, despite the fact that you could look at it and go, well, but they're playing 18-year-olds, whatever. Right. But then if they, like, you know what I mean? It wasn't a win-win for San Jose at all to have United come in to do a preseason. Right. Especially because they're in the middle of a season. They have their own stuff to be worrying about. They have a coach that a lot of the fans don't like. They are in the bottom of the Western Conference rankings, and it's just like, yeah, okay, cool, great. We'll play Manchester United. It'll throw off our whole schedule, but then we have to go back and try and actually not suck. Yeah.
I often like to think of it as, like, you want to look at some of the most successful leagues in the world, right? And would the EPL or La Liga ever allow mid-season friendlies happening during their season?
They haven't allowed those to happen in, like, I don't know, 40 years.
Right.
Like, I remember
so
it used to be an occurrence.
As a fan of the MLS, if I if I really wanted this, I wouldn't want a team to come here, and I don't want to keep saying this, but disrespecting. I see it, honestly, I see it as really disrespectful to come here and use the U.S.'s facilities and all these things, and I know you want to grow the sport, and we can get into that discussion of, yes, it does bring attention to the sport here, but to me, as an MLS organization, I don't think it's the right move in any circumstance.
Well, let's pose the question. Yes, like you said, clearly it's bringing plenty of attention to soccer in America, right? You have clubs essentially in all these big cities bringing star power. You know, they're doing the when they did the House of Soccer, they brought a lot of attention to it. But is it bringing attention in the right way?
Right.
So do you think it's bringing attention in the right way, in the way that it is?
No, not even a little bit. I feel like it's just more or less a money grab. Like way more just like, yo, we need more money. Like it's bringing just the wrong kind of attention, I think. It's not what I want to see.
It depends. I actually think like this initiative, the House of Soccer, is an amazing initiative because it touches on all of the things that we think make the sport so great. It brings that here into the U.S. and lets people kind of enjoy that experience that people do abroad here on home soil. But in terms of the actual footballing and what it means for a diehard fan to have to go watch San Jose play a shitty game against Manchester United, it doesn't really do anything for the diehard fans, right? It does kind of, but for those people, I would suggest that they already understand the culture of the sport. I think in terms of bringing in new people, I'm going to keep using the example of the San Jose because that game was terrible. It doesn't bring any new fans into a game because it was so bad.
Yeah, wouldn't you just think it's like, oh well, this team
just
sucks,
this
I'm
fits
gonna watch
this
Manchester
fits the
United
exact
instead.
model that I, as a soccer hater, if I were a soccer hater, that game fits the exact model of what I would think soccer is. So, is it helping? Is it helping it from that perspective? Not really. I mean, sometimes you get games, the Manchester United Real Madrid game where it was in Michigan, and they filled out that stadium, 100-something thousand people, I think. Yeah, those games, but again, that's not an MLS teams. But I almost respect those a little bit more because they are just the European teams. They're kind of here just to play against other European teams, not necessarily the MLS. There's nothing really bad happening there, but it brings more exposure to the sport in that way. So for that, I to answer your question more concisely, I do think that if the ICC, which the ICC is just the foreign-based teams, right? It's not any MLS. I think no MLS team is actually a part of the ICC. Those are kind of the friendlies before the friendlies of the ICC.
But they're always attached because, like you said, all of these clubs do play each other before or after the ICC because they're already here and the MLS. These teams from Europe come out here, play the MLS teams as the preseason to the preseason, and then get into their kind of ICC tournament where they get a little bit more ingrained in the season. I think the actual ICC, and if it were just the foreign teams playing out here, is a good initiative. I think that it brings all the things that we want it to, and especially if we see them bringing in this House of Soccer and other initiatives like that to try to kind of bring soccer culture as a whole and make it more present in the U.S., I think it's really good. I have the problem once we start letting MLS teams become involved with that. And so my question to you is having, if it were only, like if we were to isolate this topic only to the ICC, right, with only the European teams, does that actually help, say, the attention given to the MLS grow by itself? Because some people will argue that, especially in like a World Cup year where everyone's been on soccer fever since, you know, June, they think that, okay, so because everyone's talking about soccer, if we're the MLS, we might actually just get some like what is it, like flow over or like
yeah, I know.
Like if it bubbles over, it just kind of like people just can't get
it. The spillage will come.
Yeah, spillage. Like people want so much soccer that they just all of a sudden start following the MLS.
Yeah.
Some people will argue that is the case, right?
Yeah.
Because you're talking about soccer a lot more often. You're thinking about it all the time. Sometimes what they're hoping is that it'll just kind of spill over and it'll spill over and you'll just like start to watch MLS games.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the case, or do you think that there's something they could do?
Not necessarily. I think that why do teams go abroad to have preseason? In my mind, it is because they want to, not because they want to get fitter. Because if they wanted to get fitter, they would just have preseason in their own countries.
Right.
They go abroad because they want to increase their brand. They want to increase their team's names. And that may increase the sports name, but Manchester United isn't coming here to the U.S., the biggest market in the world, maybe behind China, because they want to play soccer. I mean, they can do that. in Manchester. They can do that across Europe, where traveling is shorter. There's less expenses getting from one place to another to play games, et cetera, et cetera. They're here because they want to grow Manchester United's brand name, and you can see it with almost anywhere that they go. They're not going to some place in Africa to play soccer because the market there isn't big enough, right? So to me, it could, but the residual effect is that more people start to follow that team from abroad and not MLS. That's my initial idea.
Yeah, like because of San Jose.
Right.
Like, it's like, wow, this team. Like, why would I want to watch this shit team when, like, ooh, this Manchester, like, for just a first timer, like, oh, hey, this team beat this other team who's in like, it's just interesting. But either way,
but even when you're thinking of just following the hype, right? Like, if I watch that Manchester United Real Madrid game with that many people, I'm like, damn, these two teams get a lot of love, right?
True.
And that might make me then follow them a little bit more. But I'm not like, okay, Manchester United, okay. And then how do I connect the dot to Manchester United to the New England Revolution? To me, I don't see it. I mean,
and so that is where the preseason friendlies come in with the MLS.
Yeah.
Right? Which is back to where we are. But the problem with that is that we already discussed what's wrong with that. So the question becomes, like, how do you actually make this be more beneficial? A lot of people are probably arguing, like, this is bringing a lot of hype to the sport in general. So I'm sure that there is some spillover into the MLS and the attention given to the MLS. But it's like, is there a solution to kind of bridging this gap between how do you grow the sport from all of these international clubs' perspectives, but also grow the sport domestically through MLS games? One idea would be if they, I know it's a World Cup year, so they probably couldn't have done it this year because they already take a break for the World Cup. But what if they took a break similar to when they have the World Cup and take like a 2 or 3 week break from the MLS, and some of the biggest clubs in the MLS kind of schedule friendlies with these teams and get involved in the ICC?
Yeah.
Is that a good idea, or do you think?
I would say either do that or even vice versa, like send some of the MLS teams out to play in Europe, just to granted, I'm sure it would get a lot of flack from more English-sided fans just because they don't really love MLS or anything like that. But just for us, it would kind of be, I think, even just for like normal soccer fans, it'd be more interesting to see like how would we fare over there.
I think that's an awesome idea, actually,
because it would connect the biggest league in the world. The Premier League.
It's almost like a foreign exchange student program. Like, here,
it's like we'll go your way 1 year, and then you'll come back to us.
Yeah,
that's a cool idea because it'll allow American viewers the possibility to maybe see what European fans are even for preseason.
True.
Yeah. Right? Because there, you look anywhere abroad, you go to a preseason. Think of like Barcelona unveiling a new player, they fill out the stadium.
Neymar
so
packed the stadium.
Right. Imagine when they play a friendly when all the teams. So right, it brings America into the culture a little bit more. That's a cool idea. Another idea is, honestly, no one's ever going to care if it's not competitive, and I know that it is a preseason, but if there were some fiscal, maybe some financial reason for the team to perform well, for the MLS to be like, hey, you win ICC or you win these friendlies against these European teams, maybe everyone gets a bonus of X amount, and maybe their monetary reasons are always going to incentivize people to do things. So that's another reason. Of course, you don't want to see the sport necessarily just be driven by financial reasons, but it is their jobs, and if it increases the level of play, and
it's more about the incentive than it is about the cash.
Right, and just making it be more competitive of a tournament, and or make the experience of these teams coming from abroad and playing MLS teams be more of a competitive event overall. I think that would increase it. I don't know if my solution is the best way, but finding some way to make it more competitive for sure.
Right, because I think right now this exists in like almost 2 lanes where it's like, yes, you have these European teams in America, but they are clearly separated from the rest of the game in the United States. Because right now you have all the people who are diehard MLS supporters, and then you have the people, the vast majority, in my opinion, who love soccer, live in America. They support other teams, which there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? We all supported other teams because we've been supporting soccer for a long time, and for the longest time, MLS was not very good.
Right.
So I understand that, but right now it's almost as if these two things exist in 2 worlds. I think that whatever solution, if there is a solution, would involve bringing both of these worlds into one.
Yeah.
I think another interesting point on the point you made is, it would also be really cool for MLS players who had never gotten to play abroad and to experience, their locker rooms or the other team staff. Like imagine this, right? You take the Revs, and Bob Kraft is actually, from what I hear, good friends with the dude who owns Roma, right? And they're both Boston businessmen. Imagine he takes the Revs. They play a couple games in Italy, right? They play Roma. They're in Roma, and then they'll play. I don't know. They play Milan. But all of a sudden, these Revs players who have only been accustomed to the training staff and the training rooms and the clubhouse in Foxborough at Gillette. But now they have the chance to experience what it's like to play in Roma, even if it's in the middle of summer,
Right.
like whatever.
Matter.
Right.
You get to
Imagine
now
that.
experience the atmosphere. You get to experience what their backroom staff is like, what their training facilities are like, what they have prepared. That's going to maybe help the coaches for the Revs. Like pretend Brad Friedel went. I'm sure. I mean, Brad Friedel has a lot of experience in
True.
Europe, but some of the coaches in the MLS don't, right?
Right.
So I think it would be eye-opening if that were the case.
Almost like
I
light
think
a fire under
that
the ass,
light
too,
a fire. I think it allows MLS teams to play up to competition, whereas a lot of the preseason right now, it seems like European teams are playing down to competition.
Really
And that-
down.
Right. So and that's no disrespect to the MLS, but it just from watching the games, it doesn't seem like. I mean, it almost seems like it could be semi-pro sometimes with just like it's just not consistent because it is preseason, right? But I think if American players and MLS teams got to experience a little bit more abroad, see those facilities, kind of have that gaze over their eyes of, wow, this is what it's like to be in Real Madrid's stadium. Let's go out on the pitch and let's perform. Let's. I mean, you just get that feeling, right?
Right.
So I do think that's a pretty cool idea.
Even when you would, as a kid, play in like these big venues, or
Yeah,
like
right.
I played Harvard Stadium one time. It's
Right.
like there's just this awe-inspiring moment. It's
Yeah.
like, damn, like this is great.
Right, and even if it's like a camp, I've
True.
done camps at with the New England Revolution where it's like I'm just playing a little 5-a-side game here, but I'm in the stadium. It's a totally different experience from playing on just a grass soccer field, right? And that's I kind of translate it to that as being these Revolution guys go to somewhere abroad and experience that. It would be really cool to see how they performed under that.
No, I think that's a really cool idea. Plus, not to mention, you'd be able to backroom staff, like the higher ups would be able to kind of meet each other and start to form connections, right? Like what if all of a sudden, let's pretend like Roma and the Revs got into a good agreement, and all of a sudden they can kind of trade players back and forth with each other because they have that. I'm not saying they have like a unspoken agreement, but if you know someone personally, it probably makes business a little bit easier, right? But yeah, I think that's very interesting. But moving back to the ICC. Because right now, I don't think there's necessarily a final. Like, they call it the International Champions Cup, and they just kind of, like, award the cup based on, like, how many wins or whatever.
That's
No,
what
I
was
think that
looking at.
there's a playoff.
There's a playoff?
Yeah,
Really?
like the final, like Manchester United won, but I don't think they played a final versus Real Madrid.
Oh, is that what it was?
I think that's what, and then we won the final. Everyone was like, "Oh, you're Manchester United is a thing," but like we won that tournament, but I don't think it was based off of points.
But
I'm
also-
not totally sure. Because again, I'm just not that involved
think
with
it
like
might
the
just
actual
be.
standings.
But my
But I
question
thought
is,
that we played a final against Real Madrid.
it could be, but the problem is like, we don't even know that. So if-
right.
I think
That
the
could be
main
a total
point-
that could be a total problem of
Right,
like
if the point is that we don't even know
Yeah.
if it's a tournament or
Yeah.
not, and we've been following
Yeah.
it, we've been to ICC games, like,
yeah.
clearly there's an issue. So, but it's hard, right? Because they're in the middle of preseason. Can you make these teams just play harder? Like, not necessarily.
Again, it's hard because Europe is looking at as a way to just build up for their seasons. I mean, not unfortunately, but the leagues they play in are more competitive. They have a lot more money riding on it, a lot more historical. Can't think of the word, but there's a lot more that goes behind getting ready for those tournaments than just performing well here, right? I remember one year, I think a couple years ago, the year Juventus first went to the finals of the Champions League. That year, I remember seeing them play a game in the ICC, and I was like, Jesus, this team is fucking awful, right? So it just goes to show you, like, the quality of play is completely different when they're here and these guys are just coming off holiday, off of the drinking and all that. So
And they also don't even really do tactics. You know what I mean? They're just like, hey, go play.
Right.
Versus like if in the example, let's say you're Liverpool, right? And you have your next game against Chelsea. Klopp's going to look at it and go, all right, if we're playing Chelsea, like if this were in the Premier League, Klopp would be like, all right, guys, you got to make sure we're pressing high or, actual tactics versus Here, they're just like, all right, we're in preseason.
Yeah.
Let's
Here's
try
my
this guy
11.
out.
Yeah. Well,
Just go play.
And to go on with that even more, Louis, that's a great point because Mourinho came out. We have a lot of these guys, Gomez and Chong, that have come, and they're playing a lot of minutes here in preseason. And Mourinho, after one of the games, said, this guy Chong, who's been pretty well, he probably will just practice with us, but his future is probably just with the youth team for now, right? So, again, it's that there's no correlation between the minutes they're getting here. These guys, although they look good, they're not Premier League level, Champions League level guys.
Or
These
at least
guys,
not yet.
right? Not yet. But if the manager's intention is to have this guy come here and kind of just preseason train, and then he's going back to the youth league to play, it goes to show like there's not really much there, right? Like even if a lot of the players were here,
At least for the younger guys, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The older guys probably have a little bit more proving to do.
absolutely.
Like,
But
for instance, Daniel Sturridge on Liverpool, like he's been doing pretty well this cup, and
Yeah.
like that has prompted him to almost get a second chance.
yeah.
So that's just a
Yeah,
little
it's definitely
aside.
more of a. I like to think of it almost as I think the Hard Knock series on the NFL, where you always follow this one guy's story who's trying to prove for himself that he can make the team, and then sometimes some of them get cut, some of them
True.
make the teams. So I see the preseason as more of like showcasing your individual talents, whereas like the team unity doesn't really matter there. It's kind of more of just a bonding experience and
it's like
showing
almost
the
like-
boss what you can do. But it's like there's still a big chance that you're probably not going to do anything in the real season. So
Yeah, it's almost like somewhat of a preseason tryout /
Right.
bonding trip, because
Right.
like you see in their social medias, like Liverpool was in New York City and like they were like driving bikes through the streets, like a normal, if you were
and like
having
they're doing
a,
like excursions.
yeah,
I
it's
saw a
like if
picture
you
of
have
Liverpool.
a cup, like wouldn't you think that like, yeah, the excursions would happen, but like maybe
Yeah.
not to the degree of what they were doing.
But it's hard, right? Because let's put this in a bigger perspective. Like, will this ever actually mean anything? Because look at the what's the cup that is played at the end of the year when like the Champions League winners, the Libertadores winners,
The FIFA Club World Cup.
Club World Cup. I would think that tournament would mean a lot, but it doesn't. So,
True.
but in a tournament of that stature, where it's like all of the champions are now playing in a tournament together, that doesn't get that much love.
Right.
How do you then make the ICC have any type of meaningful value to these guys when there's really nothing on the line?
Well, for me,
Preseason marketing, bro.
for me, I think that there's nothing wrong with each team kind of coming and doing it laissez-faire from Europe, right? I think that you're never gonna fix it. There's no way you're ever gonna make the ICC into like a real legit, like everyone's taking it seriously. I think one of the best ways to make it more competitive and make it more important, because like I said, I don't think there's ever going to be a point when everyone's just trying all out,
Right.
especially from the European side. But the only way, in my opinion, to make it more relevant for everybody in the U.S. and not just the European soccer lovers is, like I said, the MLS should come together and be like, all right, well, let's take a break for a couple weeks and we'll participate in this tournament and allow our teams to play in the actual ICC, because then that'll start to bridge the gap between, fans of this club and fans of this club,
Yeah.
and really just like it'll promote more of the love overall versus, you have the one-off game of United playing San Jose, right?
Yeah.
And that was not a very good
Yeah.
situation. But you might have it that if the clubs get to take time off and they don't have to necessarily worry about the
Yeah.
MLS season for a couple weeks,
Yeah.
that may, in my opinion, allow for more competitiveness.
Do you think that helps the image of the MLS if they were to do something like that? Stop their season midway just to play a
tournament?
preseason tournament with these teams?
Well,
Yeah, that's one of the double-edged sword kind of aspects of it. It's like the seasons are just different. So like
Right.
trying to
This is
find a
just a
middle
genuine
ground.
question. Like, does it hurt the and I like to pose it in the idea that we always talk about of the U.S. has a lack of respect overseas. Kind of, it's just like the Yanks playing soccer. There's kind of a bad image overseas for that. Do you think that helps or hurts if that, let's say that if a step like that were taken, where the MLS kind of goes to a grinding halt just for this tournament, where they get the chance to play against some of the bigger world teams? Does that actually help or hurt the image of American soccer?
I feel like a lot of the people who are already MLS fans would say it would be detrimental to the league, because it would be like, wow, we're really going to stop our competition just to participate in a preseason tournament that they don't even care about.
Yeah.
But we're going to have to care about it.
Yeah.
But some people might think, like, even if you guys don't take it super, super seriously, it's not the end of the world to take a midseason break. You know, even in the Premier League, they're going to go take these few weeks off in February, and a lot of leagues around the world do take a break in between. In Central America, a lot of those leagues run in two steps. They'll run like the first step, take like a month and a half, 2 month, 3 month break, and then they'll play the second half of the season. It's hard, man. Personally, I don't know. I think it would be cool to see. It would allow what I kind of think about is I think that maybe it would hurt the image a little bit at home, but it would, if the idea is to grow soccer as a whole in the United States, if that's the goal, then I think that would be a good way of doing it. Yeah. But I do see what you're saying. They would take a little bit of a hit, right? Yeah. I think that some people would look at it and go, seriously, we're going to stop our league for 2 to 3 weeks just so we can participate in a preseason tournament that they don't even care about. And that's hard. Yeah. So truthfully, I don't know. Yeah. I think that
definitely the two perspectives for sure. Diehard fans would definitely take a negative, put it like a negative look on it, but it would be good for new incoming fans and growing just the sport in general.
So a hypothetical, right? We talked about this several episodes back about the MLS adopting the FIFA calendar. In a hypothetical world, if the MLS ran from August to May, the way that the most European leagues run, do you think that would change the ICC? Where let's pretend that those summer months were preseason for these MLS clubs, and they were in a hypothetical to join the ICC. Yeah. Would that make it different?
Well, yeah, for sure, because I think then you have everyone is playing
almost on an equal footing?
On an equal footing in terms of desire, right? Because then you have a bunch of young guys. You get the starters that are playing, but then you have a bunch of young guys, both foreign and domestic, that are trying to just prove their point, prove that they should be playing for whatever team that they're playing for. They kind of know that both sides have something kind of to gain and to lose, right? If you're a European team losing to the second string MLS team doesn't look great. If you're an MLS team winning against this whatever first string or second string European team does mean something because it is preseason, so it'll help you gain a spot on the roster. So yes, I do think that that would definitely have a big effect on just the overall play.
I agree 100%. I think that it would allow for more exposure to the kids that play in the MLS and stuff, just to finally be on the general same platform as some of the biggest stars in the world. Yeah. And it would also give them a lot of hope too, to be like, wow, like we're allowed to play in the same cup and like finally our seasons are the same. Yeah. So I think it would be a step in the right direction. Yeah. It would be tough for a lot of the diehard MLS fans to adopt a new calendar.
Yeah.
And we've already kind of hit on those notes, right? Yeah. This, like I said, is very hypothetical because adopting that, I think the biggest issue right now is the timing, is that these European clubs can only come in the summer and the MLS is in the middle of a season. Right. So I do think that there are plenty of other reasons why I think MLS should adopt the FIFA calendar, which we can always talk about in another episode, and we have hit upon it before. I think a lot of it does come down to timing. But yeah.
Yeah. I think we've hit on most of the things we discussed in terms of SEC, good and bad. I'll keep tuning in to a few games here and there. It won't be something I'm deeply following. The games to go to, if you can go to live, are very fun. Definitely do that.
We were even toying with the idea of going to one of them. I remember
we were. Yeah. Then our Julys got really busy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fun mix to actually go live because you see kind of the two different fan bases intermingling. It isn't kind of that hostility that you would normally see in a European game, which is fun. You kind of get to chit chat with people of different backgrounds and different interests. So that's kind of cool for sure.
If we had gone to the game that we wanted to go to, which would be tomorrow, United versus Liverpool,
5:05 p.m.
in Michigan, it would be really cool because it's a very laissez-faire affair. Yeah, if you were to go to a game in England where Manchester United were playing Liverpool,
we would not be able to sit together.
No, we would not, and it would be hostiles left and right. Versus if we were to see it in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where we are just, hanging out. We could all be buddies and talk
Right.
to other Liverpudlians and just hang out and
Liverpudlians,
chit and chat and, like,
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, it's a definitely a fun experience, and from that perspective, it kind of is really cool to experience. If you have the chance and you're close to a stadium where they're playing, definitely go try to check that out because
Yeah.
tickets are definitely still for sale.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Support your European club, but don't forget to support your local guys too. Follow your MLS team, your USL team. Support local soccer.
Support your local podcast.
So that's it, guys. Let us know what you guys think. Do you enjoy the ICC? Do you enjoy watching the games? How do you feel about foreign teams coming in and playing preseason games versus MLS teams? Does it bother you? Do you not care? Do you just enjoy watching soccer no matter what level? Reach out to us. Send us an email. DM us. Anything, any way you can find to contact us. We'll get back to you. We love hearing your feedback. And as always, leave us that 5-star review. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.